Welcome to another video in our Etsy 101 series that's meant to lay out the foundations of selling on Etsy for those who may be completely new to this world of online selling, specifically on Etsy, and need the basics covered in a really simple and easy to understand way. If that's you, friend, I got you, because in today's Etsy Shop for Beginners tutorial, I'm explaining Etsy fees. I know, we all wish we could continue our online selling dream in complete fee-free bliss. But the reality is, any marketplace that we choose to sell on is going to have fees. They all have them, so we might as well accept that and learn what they actually are so we can intentionally build our price points to include them. This way, we're not losing out on that beautiful profit that we actually get to pocket from our sales. So if you're an Etsy beginner, or maybe you're just confused about what fees are involved with selling on Etsy, then keep on watching. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So glad you're here. If this is our first time meeting, I'm Kate. I'm a wife, mom, Etsy seller, and business coach, and I'm here to help you start and scale your online business so that you can make a full-time income doing what you love. So like I mentioned before, this video is part of our Etsy 101 series. If you haven't seen last week's video, which was all about what types of products you can sell on Etsy, then I'll have that video linked in the description box below. You can click over to watch that after this, but this one today is all about Etsy fees. I'm going to break them down as simply as I can and make it as easy to understand as possible. Now, as I go through these, you may be tempted to think, oh my goodness, this is so many different fees, and start to feel really overwhelmed. But I want to start this by making sure that you know not all of the fees I'm about to mention apply to every seller. The likelihood is that only a few of these will apply to you, but I'm going to mention them all just in case. Some are optional and some are location based. I also want you to keep in mind that no matter which fees apply to you, it is always possible to price your items in a way that accounts for every single fee and also leaves room to build a healthy profit margin into it. So I don't want you to think that, oh, it's going to be impossible to profit after I pay all these fees, because there is a certain pricing strategy that makes it possible to do both. Again, I have a video on this. If you're interested, I'll link that in the description box as well, that talks about my two-phase pricing method, and that includes setting your price points to cover your fees. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into these fees. The first fee we're going to talk about is the listing fee. This fee is a 20-cent listing fee for every time you create and publish a new listing or renew an existing listing. There is no fee for editing an existing listing, so this is only for creating and publishing a new one or renewing a listing. So each time you create and publish a new listing, you're going to pay 20 cents. And if you have multiple quantities listed on a listing and you sell several of them, if you have it set to automatic renewal, every time that listing sells and automatically renews, the 20 cents listing fee applies. When you publish a new listing, it's active for 4 months by default. So every time you make a sale on that listing, the 4 months starts again if it's automatically renewed. But if you have a listing that doesn't make a sale within the 4 months, if you choose to renew it for another 4 months, you're going to pay that 20 cents listing fee for the renewal. All right, next is the transaction fee. So the Etsy transaction fee at the time of this filming is 6.5%, and this applies to every transaction, including your listing price, any amount that you've charged for shipping and or gift wrapping. So that 6.5% fee will be applied to the total, including all of those, and it'll be automatically deducted from your payment account and your current balance in your account every time a sale occurs. For US and Canada sellers, you can know that this fee does not apply to sales tax. So if you're collecting sales tax apart from that listing price, then this does not apply to sales tax. But if you have built in or accounted for sales tax in your listing price, then obviously it would apply because it's applying to the price you have on the listing. So this transaction fee is across the board for all sellers. This is not optional and this is not location based. This is going to apply to every transaction. All right, we're about to move on to fee number 3, but if you're getting value out of this and you're looking into Etsy selling, I want to encourage you to watch my 60-minute live Etsy success training. I have it linked in the description box below. It's a completely free masterclass that you have access to, where I teach through my 5P formula. These are the 5 pillars that I've personally built my Etsy shop on and trained my students and have seen major results with. So I definitely think it'll be super helpful for you if you're just starting an Etsy shop, or if you maybe already have an Etsy shop but just haven't seen the consistent sales that you've wanted to. This is going to give you actionable and practical strategies that you can implement today to start leveling up and improving your shop to make that consistent revenue. Like I mentioned, I'll link that training in the description box below, or you can go to etsymasterclass.com. Okay, moving on to the next fee, which is the payment processing fee. The payment processing fee applies to the shops that accept Etsy payments. Payments. Etsy Payments is supported in several different countries, so if your shop is in a country where Etsy Payments is supported, Etsy does require you as a seller to opt in and make Etsy Payments available for your shop. So for any shops that offer Etsy Payments, the payment processing fee will apply. Now, if you're wondering what Etsy Payments are, this basically just is an option that Etsy offers to give more payment options to shoppers. So when your shop accepts Etsy Payments, you're giving the shopper a wider variety of payment options, including PayPal, several different credit card companies, Google Pay, Apple Pay. There are a lot of different options compared to not using Etsy Payments. It also gives buyers the option to pay in their local currency. You're more likely actually to make more sales if your shop does offer Etsy Payments because you're giving your shoppers more options, which is definitely likely to increase the number of conversions. So the specific amount for the payment processing fee varies depending on the location of the shop's bank account. This is different from country to country, and there's a whole list where you can see what the different countries are and what the exact payment processing fee is for that country. I'll link that in the description box below. But for example, the US seller payment processing fee. So if your bank account for the shop is in the US, your payment processing fee is going to be 3% plus 25 cents per transaction that goes through Etsy Payments. So to break that down really simply, for every transaction that uses Etsy Payments in your shop, if you're a US seller, the fee is going to be 3% of the transaction total plus an additional 25 cents. All right, fee number 4 here is shipping fees. Of course, this only applies if you have physical goods that you're shipping. This would not apply to digital products or files that don't have shipping involved. But shipping fees will apply if you decide to purchase your shipping labels through Etsy. Now, your shop does need to accept PayPal or Etsy Payments in order to have the option to purchase shipping labels through Etsy. But if you do accept those options, then you can purchase your shipping labels through Etsy. For US sellers, the options are FedEx and USPS. So instead of going to a separate shipping company website, you're purchasing through your Etsy account, and that's where these shipping fees will be deducted from your payment account if you choose to go that route. All right, our next fee is an optional one, and this fee is for Etsy ads. So like I mentioned, this fee is completely optional as you don't have to opt into using Etsy ads, but if you have a little bit of a budget, you might want to try out Etsy ads, which are basically paid ads on the Etsy platform to get your listings viewed higher in the search results. So if you choose to use Etsy ads, you get to set your daily budget amount. So this means that Etsy will then advertise your listings and you'll pay for each click that comes in through the ads on those listings up until it reaches your budget for your daily amount. And if it gets to that point that you've set your budget, Etsy will stop advertising your listings for that day and then begin again the next day. You have complete control to decide which listings you want to advertise and which ones you don't, and you can set that daily budget amount for whatever amount you're comfortable with. You can always turn on or off your Etsy ads at any time, so this is completely up to you if you want to try this out. The way this works is that Etsy determines the bid amount for each listing. So when it's advertising or showing your listing, you will pay a certain amount per click through on that ad of your listing. So this would be any time that the listing is shown to someone. You're not paying for impressions, you're paying only for people that actually click through on the ads. All right, moving on to the next type of fee, which is also an ads fee, but this is for off-site ads. This one is sometimes optional and sometimes not. Let me explain. So Etsy actually purchases off-site advertising from a network of participating partners like social networks and search engines. So these could be places like Google, Instagram, Facebook. Etsy's actually purchasing ad spots on those partners' platforms to be able to advertise Etsy listings on those platforms. So there's a chance that Etsy could choose your listing to promote through an off-site ad on one of those platforms. And if there is a sale that results from that ad, then the off-site ads fee applies. So just to clarify here, if they're promoting your listing, let's say on Facebook, and someone clicks on that listing from Facebook, comes through to your shop and purchases the item within 30 days of clicking on that off-site ad, then you pay the off-site ads fee that applies to that transaction. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Some shops will pay 15% as that off-site ads fee, and some shops will pay 12%. The way it works is this. There is a $10,000 threshold that determines this. So if your shop has made less than $10,000 in sales in the previous 365 days, then your off-site ads fee will be 15%. It is a higher percentage, but you also have the option to opt out. So at that point, if your shop has made less than $10,000 in that previous 365 days, you can actually go in your shop settings and opt out and not participate in the off-site ads. For shops that have either met or exceeded that $10,000 threshold in the previous 365 days, you do not have the option to opt out. It's mandatory participation for those shops, but it is a reduced percentage of 12%. different. There are a lot of different thoughts and opinions among Etsy sellers on this. Some people love it, some people hate it, but that's just the way it works at the time of this filming. So in general, you can either pay the higher amount, but have the option to opt out, or pay the lower amount and be required to participate. I personally don't mind paying for offsite ads. I think it's great to have more exposure on those different platforms. And I definitely think there's a way that you can price your items to still cover that in the case that you do make some sales from those offsite ads. And remember, this only applies for sales that come through an offsite ad. This is not applying for organic Etsy sales that just come through the Etsy search, or even for sales that come through your internal Etsy ads that you're running. This is only when they come from a platform that Etsy's partnering with, like Google or Facebook. Okay, the next two fees we're going to talk about are both completely optional, and they're both subscription upgrades from the free Etsy account that you might sign up for. The first one is called Etsy Plus, and this is a fee for upgrading to the Etsy Plus subscription monthly. At the time of filming, the fee for this is $10 monthly, and you get extra added benefits for being an Etsy Plus subscriber as opposed to just operating a basic Etsy shop. If you choose to upgrade and pay for Etsy Plus, then some of the additional features you get are 15 monthly listing credits, $5 in monthly Etsy ads credits, the ability to have restock requests, a discount on custom domain names, and advanced shop customization. I'll link an article in the description box below where you can click through and look at everything that Etsy Plus offers if you're interested in that. Again, this is completely optional. You can totally do what you need with the free basic Etsy account, but this is just to upgrade if you want some of those added features. The next fee is similar, but this is for Etsy Pattern. So there's Etsy, Etsy Plus, and Etsy Pattern. Etsy Pattern is like a step up from Etsy Plus because with Etsy Pattern, you actually get your own website through Etsy. At the time of this filming, the Etsy Pattern fee to upgrade is $15 a month. Again, I'll have an article linked below that you can click through on if you want more information on Etsy Pattern. All right, the next two are definitely ones that probably don't apply to most people, but they are location based. And so if you are in a country where one of these applies, you may want to take these into consideration. The first one is the regulatory operating fee. Now again, this is location based. This is only applicable for certain countries, and Etsy only charges this for shops that are in those countries where they may have to pay an additional expense for operating within those countries. An example of this might be a charge that Etsy has to pay for compliance with applicable regulations in a certain country. Since Etsy's cost of operations in that country are raised, then they're having to charge this fee to sellers in that country to cover that additional operating cost. This fee is based on the country and is a fixed fee that applies to the amount that you price the listing at, plus any additional gift wrapping, shipping, or personalization costs that you charge. You can see that article linked below to find out which countries this applies to. And the next fee is the currency conversion fee. So this fee states that when a seller lists and subsequently makes a sale in a currency other than the currency of the shop's payment account, Etsy will settle the associated transaction proceeds in the currency of the seller's payment account. When this service is required, which is not all the time, but when it is required, Etsy applies a 2.5% fee. Calculation rates are updated regularly, so you can check that link below for more information on this if you feel like this might apply to you. Okay, friends, well, that covers the basic fees on Etsy. I hope this was able to break it down simply for you so you can understand a little bit more what you're going into as an Etsy seller. Like I mentioned before, not all of these apply to everyone, so I would definitely recommend you figure out which ones are going to apply to you so you know how to set your price points to cover them and still make a healthy profit margin. Don't forget to go to etsymasterclass.com or click that link in the description box below to watch my 60-minute free training all about the 5P formula that I use to bring my shop to the top 1% of sellers and to bring my business to multiple six figures. It'll definitely give you those actionable strategies that you can implement in your shop today to level it up and get to that point of consistent sales. See you soon, friends.